Good afternoon, good morning, good. Why I'm looking at you and saying, she'd be looking at the camera, I know that, but Georgia's there and she's got a look in her face. Take that look off your face. Takes you there. Anyway, welcome to the S.H.OP Social Hub of Positivity. With me today is someone I've literally met, how long ago?
5 minutes ago.
Isn't it? Something like that. But it's such a laid back and interesting person already that he agreed to do a podcast because you come to talk about something else, which I appreciate as well. But I'm fascinated for our audience to hear what you were talking about. I said, oh no, hold on to that and we'll talk about it here because I think it's really important. And for those people that know me, you know that whole capitalist system is something of an intrigue to me. Shall we call it an intrigue at this moment? At this little juncture in this presentation, but this lovely man here is going to explain it a bit more. He'll say what he's going to do and what he's going to do. What's he going to do? I don't know. What he does, and what he's been doing, and going to schools and stuff. Anyway, without further ado, John Boatman, thank you so much for coming on the show. That is such a show. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, yeah. So a bit about me, really. I've been an independent financial advisor for 27 years.
Wow.
I know I don't look old enough.
Exactly, I thought since the age of 3.
Yeah.
Just think about it, people.
I'm actually 55 this year, and I just think it's so important to teach people about teach people about money. We are taught to work for money, but we're not taught how money works. And at school, I wasn't taught about money. My dad was an accountant, and unfortunately we lost him when he was 70, and I'm determined to not work until I'm 70 if I can help it. I just think it's so important to teach people about money and budgeting. And they did a survey a few years ago now, and they asked people who were leaving school what was the number one thing they wished they'd learnt at school, and the number one thing was budgeting.
Yeah. Just
how money works and how to budget. I've done a few talks at schools before the pandemic. One was local at Sutton Benja Primary School, which was quite good fun with the young kids. Where does money come from? Will we ever run out of money? And all these really good questions from seven-year-olds.
Yeah.
And then last week I went back into school in Warminster, a private school to be fair, and spoke about money. But people do worry about money, and I think the pandemic has meant that there's a lot of hidden anxiety, and some of that is to do with money and worrying about paying the bills. And we are probably just about to hit the worst recession that we're probably ever going to have. I'm sorry to be negative, but we've got a rising cost of living, increasing inflation, interest rates going up. All really good news, but we can do something about that if we just learn a little bit more about how we can use money and how we can maybe save some money to invest for the future. Easier said than done. So I work locally. I'm based in Caen. I've been based in this area all my life. I was born in Chippenham.
What school did you go to?
I went to what was John Bentley for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And then I went away to Warminster School, which is a boarding school. I don't know what I did wrong, but my mum and dad decided to put me there. To be fair, I loved it. It was a very army-based school, a lot of links with the army, and a lot of my friends are still in touch with. I've got a family based in the army, or background in the army. And that's where I was last week, because they asked me to talk to the sixth form. So yeah, if I can do anything to help here and volunteer my services and my knowledge and that kind of thing.
That's brilliant. There's a lot of people that come into the shop. I'm looking at George. I look at the camera. There's a lot of people that come into the shop who would definitely be able to would benefit from, me included, that type of practical advice. And it's an interesting one because George has said, had you seen any of my podcasts? Because I completely don't agree with the capitalist system at all. So for me, you're right. Obviously, it's like if you're playing Monopoly and you're playing by the rules, that's how life works. But
it's rigged.
Well, it's not so much it's rigged. I think Monopoly is probably fairer than real life because you don't inherit the cards in Monopoly. However, you might, if it's a spin of a dice, if you play it the long way and play with the spin of the dice, that's say equal. But in reality, people are born in Mayfair and they live in Mayfair, and people who are born in the Old Kent Road can't even live in the Old Kent Road now because it's been, what do you call that thing? Gentrified, thank you. I wouldn't mind, but isn't it? Mine comes from Croatia and she knows more English than me. That doesn't surprise me though, because I remember how I was educated really well. So here's the crack. So if you're playing Monopoly and you're telling them the rules, and that's all right, they can play the piano. It's real. It's probably a little kid, right? Or it's the maestro. It's a genius. It's probably both. Yeah, I think that's all right actually, if you're not bothered by it. However, so because Monopoly, and I think I'll just hit on this analogy, and you can counter it in a minute if you dare. No, here's it. If you're playing Monopoly and you're happy to play Monopoly, that's fine, except when you realise in real life that the game's rigged and you're never going to live in Mayfair, and the people that actually live in Mayfair have usually inherited, and I think I'm probably right in saying that it'll be the Duke of what's his name? Duke of Westminster, one of the richest men in the country, from just having been born. So that's preposterous. That's preposterous in itself. But the actual, you're saying about cost of living, this, that, and the other, only because everyone thinks they have to play Monopoly. You see, you need food to eat, you don't need money to eat.
Yeah, I think at the moment what's happening has been headlines about people choosing to eat before heating their homes.
Yeah. Again, privatising the power, the water thing, totally immoral, let alone.
Yeah, I can help in that area too, but that's another business.
Start a revolution.
I think one of the things I would say to counter that, and I do hear what you're saying. I did have a comprehensive background, then I went to a private school, so fair point. But my dad did well for himself. He worked hard and he was comfortable in his living, but he decided to spend that money on educating his children the way he decided to do that.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I think you can break out of the system. I honestly think if you've got that resilience within you and you can get around the right people, that's the key thing for me. Get around the right people. It doesn't really matter where you start from, it's where you go to. And I honestly believe that anyone can.
I agree. Agree, but you'd also say that if it was a race, and let's say that kids that go to private school, just for the sake of the argument, who got there because your dad, you say, worked hard all his life, fair play to him. If a kid that goes to private school their parents have got the money from inheriting.
Should I have brought private school up?
No, it's good because it's all connected. It's exactly connected. So what I'm saying is, if that kid who went to private school and his parents inherited it, they're perpetuating the idea that you don't really have to do anything to get money. So there's that bursts that whole meritocracy thing, right? And I'm not even going to get into the royals. So here's the crack. If you're doing a race and you're all been trained and you all have equal access to food and training and what have you, then that's relatively a fair race. But in reality, what's happening is you're getting people who can't heat themselves or their children, who some parents who don't, and we work with them, who don't eat themselves so that the kids can eat. Yeah, we're talking about a civilization, a civilized society, and you go, wait a minute, how could that possibly be? That's before you get onto the idea that people have more than one shelter. What sort of society do we live in that people are allowed to own more than one house when people are homeless?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So for me,
my wife works with a local food bank in Caen, and
wow,
she volunteers.
And this is not personal to you.
No,
this
it's all good. It's really good debate.
And I appreciate what you're doing and how you're doing it. Remember, I also appreciate that you're a community-minded person. You just said about your wife. Carry on about your wife, because that's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean the local Caen food bank is run by volunteers, obviously, and my wife is a really good organiser. She loves a list. And she's involved as a secretary of the Caen Food Bank, and it's absolutely shocking to see what's going on. People that have never gone to a food bank, before Christmas, turning up to the food bank. So we support that kind of charity as it is, and they've got a lot of pasta. Don't give pasta to the food bank because they've got a lot of pasta. But toilet rolls. Go for toilet rolls, but just don't do it in bulk. We saw that at the beginning of the pandemic. But yeah, I think it isn't a fair society. I'm with you, and I'm just trying to do my bit.
Oh no, and I believe that you are.
And Wiltshire,
listen,
and I think sometimes
no,
absolutely not. To me, I honestly don't really take much care for politicians. I just get on with what I can do.
Yeah.
And I think if we get too into, the politicians are doing this, the politicians are doing that, the same thing will be happening 5 years from now, in my opinion. And I've got
100%.
good friends that are moaning about politicians and this,
Yeah.
that, and the other. Whatever colour you are in politics, will still have the same problems
100%.
5 years from now,
Yeah.
10 years from now. You can live your life like that,
Yeah.
or you can try and make a difference now.
Yeah.
And now is a tough time to be living.
Well, I set this organisation up 24 years ago.
And you would have seen a lot of changes.
Well, no, sustainable development. 24 years ago, I say this. I am an Irish immigrant kiddie, right, or second generation, born here, right. And the fact that I can understand that the most important issues facing human survival is the climate, which has been brought about, the change in climate, whether people believe it or don't believe it. I have no problem arguing or debating with the scientists I've worked about these particular subjects and going, right, so since the Industrial Revolution, which is what, 150 odd years ago, we have actively destroyed the very habitat that we live in. In doing so, we've been able to move between point A and B faster. We've been able to exploit and have an empire which has essentially got wealth and minerals and all sorts of spices and everything else from countries that didn't necessarily want to give it to us because we had better technology. But in doing so, we've actively destroyed our habitat. So I don't know what the word moron really means, but you can see that that's mildly moronic as a species. And yet we have governments, and you're totally right, party politics, even at a local level, is laughable. It would be laughable if it wasn't so immoral. And anyone that can either have the mild intelligence to be able to understand the points that we face, the absolute desperation. So when I started this organization, scientists that I was lucky enough to be advised by said, it's 30 years before we reach a critical tipping point. And that was 24 years ago. So there's nothing in the last 24 years on an environmental social impact made by industry, people making money for the sake of making money without making any sense how they're making money. And I've worked with the PVC conglomerates, I've worked with AMEC, the petrochemical, because I, like you, believe that you have to go in amongst the real people. So I don't just sit on the outside working with the hardest to reach. I do that because I know that they won't have any access to opportunity if I don't, or people like me and organizations like me. There aren't that many. Or ours, not like me, but working in conjunction with governments, local governments, where we've had to in before, because we get it, that they don't go in and about and work up and down the country, so we share that information. So I have been an advisor to government at national level around community cohesion. So that's taking the climate, that's taking everything, all opportunity and access and education. I don't agree with private education, as you can probably tell. Boarding schools, social care for rich kids, not good. Can't separate kids from parents. That's fundamentally damaging to kids. They have attachment issues and all sorts of stuff, right? So on any of those levels, I'm looking at society, investing in looking at every aspect of society. I'm happy enough to report back that as a species, we are, I don't know what the word is because I wasn't educated, but we are self-destructing. In doing so, people are still, some have this impression that we're on the Titanic. We're all on the Titanic. The working classes and the lower classes, or the useless classes as they are now, underneath that are in wherever that is. I never saw the film because I read the ending and it was a spoiler for me. I knew what was going to happen. I didn't know that Kate Winslet was going to be involved there. But it's like, right, people think, oh, we're going to die anyway. You know, the meteor's going to hit, the sun's going to burn out. It's like, we may as well have a laugh while we can. And that seems to have been, particularly with the elites around the world. The elites don't come from a country, they come from a perspective that says, actually the game is to acquire as much things, money, wealth, whatever as possible. And in doing so, they look at it and go, oh, wait a minute, I can't take this with me, so what's going to happen next? How do you financially advise us out of that? Because
what should have put more on the meter for the car park.
Yeah.
I think.
We should have
but seriously, seriously. I mean, I think for me, I hear what you say about private schools. I'm not here to defend it that at all. But I mean, I didn't do particularly well at school. I didn't. I just wanted to kick a football about.
Fair play.
And run an athletics track. And I didn't go to university because I just had enough. I want to get a job.
Yeah.
And I started with nothing. Really.
That's that's fantastic. That's meritocracy,
Yeah.
in a way. And the private schools for me isn't about the people; it's about the principle.
The principle of it.
Oh, okay. I have private schools, but if you're an MP, you can't send your kids there. Think about it. You can't have private medicine for your family. What would happen in Parliament? All the National Health Services would be fantastic because no one would try and. If you had to, as an MP, have to live in a constituency, send your kids to the local school, send your family to the local NHS. Trust me, enlightened vested self-interest says those hospitals and schools will be equal and good for everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm not, and again, and I admire that you've done what you've done.
I'll be honest. I'd rather be honest and be real as a person and tell my background of where I come from. I can't kind of
no, and I don't want you to.
that.
Why would you need to with me?
Absolutely.
Who am I?
But, and we've just met.
This is
so,
why I don't know many people.
I think one of the things for me, I mean, I'm not going to go down the environmental issues because I think that's another debate. But I do honestly believe wherever you are at the start of your life, your adult life, I honestly do believe you can go anywhere. Right? I do believe that.
Yes.
Because you've got to break. You've got to break the cycle. I think. I mean, I might be wrong in saying this, and I might not be educated enough to say this, but I think if you're at a point where you can't heat the house and you're eating. My wife comes from that background. Her mother couldn't afford to eat because she needs to feed a child. Yeah. My wife's an only child.
Sounds wonderful, I have to say.
It's a real mix. But the point I'm making is I honestly do believe that wherever you are, the starting point is, if you're surrounded by the right people
100%.
And the right environment, you can break out of the environment
and I would also, yes, thank you. I'd agree with that.
And that's what, we have agreed at something.
No, we do fundamentally.
But
you do good things with your life. You're a kind person. Your wife is socially aware.
You try to make a difference.
Right, there you go.
So you make a difference.
You're not a bad person because you work in the financial services.
No,
you're working within the constraints. You're in the system, that's the system. So why would you be? You'd be unusual if you didn't do it.
Yeah. Right. So I think the other thing about financial advice is, unfortunately, the way that regulation has gone, especially
deregulation.
In financial services and banking, I'm not a fan of banks. So I'm not a fan of banks.
Yeah, it's copyright.
Okay, and I think also the way that the financial services is regulated is becoming elitist. Because it's making people think that to have a financial advisor, you've got to have money, and I just do not like that at all.
That's interesting.
Right, so I'm kind of at a point where I'm doing okay for myself. I've spent 27 years working my business up over time. I focus on investments and pensions, boring stuff like that. I don't do it on a Sunday, and I do find that everybody deserves to get financial advice. But unfortunately, the way it's gone is you have to, in inverted commas, pay for that advice. So that is a catch-22 situation. So some banks will not advise somebody unless they've got a certain amount of money, a certain amount of assets. So you're kind of in this rigged system, the system that's is not designed for everybody. And I do honestly believe that the overall system doesn't want people to succeed. So,
well, we're agreeing again.
So from a monetary point of view, I go back to what I started with. We are taught to work for money, exchange units of time for a salary, and repeat that, and repeat that, and start from zero every single month. So I've got something called the break the zero concept, which I'm happy to explain another time, where you can start to learn about money, and you can start to generate a royalty or residual style income. It might be just pennies to start with, but by doing some work today, doing it right today, and helping people save money on some of the stuff we've talked about, learn about money, you can start to build a residual income, which is passive, is another word for it. Something like J.K. Rowling would earn, or Adele earns in royalties. But
Tottenham fan.
No, I'm not. I'm
Adele
the other side of London. I'm an Arsenal fan. So I've mentioned boarding schools and Arsenal fan, so I've cut off half the audience.
I'm a Tottenham fan.
Well, there we
Working
go.
class Marxist. I'm not a Marxist, I'm lying.
But I think the thing is, for me, I really want to make the point.
Yeah, you're doing fine. It's brilliant.
The issue for me is that we're taught to exchange time for money in a job. If you go and get a job, and that isn't, you're not progressing, you're living, and you're living to pay the bills. So you're not making these steps forward because, John, when I had a daughter 18 years ago, we were paying the mortgage, paying childcare, because that's the decision we made. Two of us were working with my ex-wife and I, and childcare. So a lot of the money was going out to pay all the bills. There wasn't the opportunity to save money. And so people are living, before you know it, it's 5 years has gone past, 10 years have gone past, and the taxes are being taken, national insurance is going up. So if you are working a job, sometimes you are surviving month from month from month. And the average disposable income in the UK is falling. So the money that's left over at the end of the month after all the bills are paid, it's under 200 quid I think now. 1 in 11 people have got 50 quid left at the end of the month who are working jobs, good jobs. And also I've seen people who are earning good money, but they spend more. To keep up with the Joneses. So
who are those Joneses?
I don't know. I'd like to meet some of them Joneses. They're in Wales, but I've got
the Welsh Joneses are all good
they're
people.
All good,
trust.
I've got good friends in Wales.
Me
so
too.
there's kind of lots of issues, and you've probably got me started now. To be fair,
no, I think it's
great.
Really
good to
listen,
debate.
Well,
it's
listen.
Important.
Not only is it debate, we're not disagreeing with each other, and I wouldn't disagree about
football.
No. I'm literally going to say, I'm going to qualify that. To say this, I'm one of those Tottenham fans, and they won't speak to me anymore. That up until the point Wenger, I used to do the boring Arsenal because he was, George Graham and all that sort of stuff. 1-0, right? Still won stuff, right? We didn't won. I don't need to tell you how long we haven't won since 2008. That league against Chelsea, bizarrely. The philosophy of Arsene Wenger, which was really introduced, the concept was introduced by Glenn Hoddle, ex-Tottenham, who became the Chelsea manager after playing for Wenger at Monaco. We've gone from finance, it's all about finance, to introducing those sports science ideas from the temperature of water to all sorts of ideas, right, to Chelsea. And it's like, where did you get that from? He was then brought over, people were going, who is this guy? I'm an FA coach, youth coach. That gentleman, that happened to be at Arsenal, then you see the success, right? Look at the philosophy of how you played the game. If you love a game of football, how could you possibly criticise the way that the psychological, the physical, and the absolute results? And it wasn't about 1-0s. It was, well, I don't need to say it, do I? Bergkamp, Henry. I could list. Challenge the luxury of bizarrely working on a film with David Seaman, Ray Parlour, fantastic. So I can't, like we're talking about finance, what you're trying to do financially. I'm not saying, you're an Arsenal. No, that's all good, man. You got good understanding of football with you, and lucky to support a good team like Arsenal and Zaka and all the guys now, Smith Rowe, unbelievable. So if you like football, you like life and whatever, you can't. And I even think Arteta's a great manager. It will be brilliant. So I wouldn't disagree, and I don't want to be dishonest and say, just because I'm not that guy. Same thing with finance. I am literally the kid in the Emperor's New Clothes saying, right, but you see, because of this, all these people are dying, or they're hungry, or they live. Now, I've worked in prisons, so I've worked in what would be considered the darker side of society, although I've never been to Parliament, so I haven't been to the darkest side, but I've worked in prisons and mental hospital, whatever. I've seen what society, or its lack of emotive or emotional empathy for fellow human beings can do. And I think part of that is, if you look at how a lot of the leaders and a lot of the elites, they're separated from the parents at a very young age. They have, and it's been proven, those separation issues, attachment issues. Some of them become sociopathic because of it, and therefore you can make all those decisions based on nothing emotional but everything practical. So if you do it in a black and white scenario, it seems to make sense. I mean, if you were anyone that was associated with Eton, I cannot believe that you can live your life with any pride when you look at all the people that you've sent through and what they've done. You're talking about the biggest austerity. There was 2010, Cameron and his mates put this country into austerity for no reason at all. Because as soon as the pandemic hit, and they used to say to Labour, and I don't agree with Labour either, when was Labour last Labour, I wonder? Working for or representing the working classes, or the masses, in fact, not just working classes. But we had a pandemic and they couldn't find enough money They couldn't print enough money. So my point is, who are you paying this money back to? Because it could only be the World Bank and it can only be everything. Who are those people? They have to have names and addresses and say, guess what? No one's paying you back. No one's paying you back. No one needs to pay you back because it's just imaginary figures in a computer screen. The money doesn't exist. It's just a concept. The concept doesn't work because on the one hand, these people are making all this stuff we don't need, which is creating a pollution and our environmental disaster, remembering that we're a part of nature, not apart from nature. So anything we do, we put into the rivers, put into the sea, we put into the air, we suffer from. It's mental. However, not as mental as the system that set it up. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I really admire what you have done as a human being. I'm serious about it. I'd love to meet your wife. This is real. Your response to this thing has gone, right, okay, this is the system. That bit doesn't work. You're going to help people. I love that. I'd like to set up an experiment with people that come in here. So when you come, it's brilliant. And if everyone did what you're doing and your wife's doing, by the way, we would have a pretty sus society. So, let me say that.
I was happier playing football, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Do you still play?
No. I played for Wiltshire and I played a couple of teams locally, but I really just wanted to play football.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do.
And you did. But you played you played for Wiltshire.
And I coached the some of the Bromham team.
Do you?
We had a team up, not now, but I was involved with the football club up there.
Yeah.
So locally. So
Steve, what's his name there then? My kids used to go to it.
Yeah, Bromham Football Club is not the same as it was
years
when I
ago.
was involved with the adult teams, the Sunday teams.
I was with Derry Hill.
Yeah, and Alan Crocker.
There you go. There's a local legend.
Yeah.
Local person in the area. Look what he did at Derry Hill.
Yeah, I know.
So if everyone in their little bit did that, and in a cohesive,
that's all I think that's all we can do.
Absolutely, and that's why we call can do.
I don't think. Yeah, and I think you can be quite defeatist sometimes. You can sit in your home and sit and can't make a difference. But everyone can make a little difference. But if you surround yourself by the right people,
absolutely,
then that's
best bit of advice I got from bizarrely Damon Albarn. Ed, always surround yourself with creative people. What he failed to say, and I think it's important to him and to me, is you have to. Those creative people have to have morality. They have to have sense of ethics and empathy, and they can't be self-absorbed. They have to understand that their behaviours and their needs and their whatever affect other people, and they have to be conscious. We all have to be conscious of that. What about setting up an experiment? Because I'm interested in this idea of so what would you invest in? And if it's say for the sake of the argument, we did this as an ongoing thing and said, right, this residual income, what would it be? Give me an example of what someone would need to do, because they could go to you and they could do this, and I'd be happy. You know what I mean? I think it's great that they would go to you, so I've got no problem.
We just explain explain there's different things.
COBA is one of the things that support us. That's a housing thing with Charlie Tedston.
Yeah.
So
I've got a couple of other businesses, but I mean one of those businesses works with a big British PLC called Telecom Plus PLC. So again, it's not ideal for your philosophy, but it is a company that is helping people save money on their bills, which is what's happening at the moment, and a company that allows you to generate an immediate income from helping somebody else, so a commission, but also then get paid a very small residual payment going forward. And it's something we can talk about and go into, and it maybe for some people it may not, but it's something that anybody can do. And then from an investment point of view, on the financial advising point of view, anyone can buy a share. You might not believe in shares and stocks and shares and the kind of system.
Why, I certainly don't.
But
what's the big short?
How do you make money work for you?
Don't have money.
Well,
have a local economic trading scheme. I'll put it this way: tomorrow, for whatever, the Russians nuke us. Any Russians out there? I've got a niece that's Russian. I don't think that will happen. Normal people don't want to nuke each other, but the powers that be, just for the crack, think they have to they spent so much money on armaments and their mates that they invested in, they have to use them every now and again to prove that they work and to cower the nation. So let's imagine we get nuked, all the power goes out, all the systems, all the regulatory systems, all the financial systems, all the health systems, because let's face it, right? What happens? Do you think the very first thing everyone does is set up an alternative share system? Remember that you had the shares in this company that now no longer exists.
I hear what you're saying.
Get some food, everyone. We're going to die. Get some water. What water? Is the air oxygen? Yeah, air, water. Everyone, water before food, because water, food, shelter. Oh, wait a minute, those houses over there are owned by the Duke of Westminster, even though all the systems are down and the police don't know anything anymore because let's not talk about the police.
The thing is, though, Ed, is the system is the system.
You think that's going to be the system forever? Do you think
unfortunately,
no,
the system's rigged.
Yeah.
So therefore,
Nature
we
isn't
can stand here
Yeah.
and we can try and change the system and make indents into that.
Absolutely.
I agree with. As a result of the pandemic and the previous financial crisis, the people are paying for that, not the banks. The people ultimately are paying for that.
So when they don't, what happens?
Well, that's the system we're in.
You know what I'm saying is, okay. So when I was younger, they said the same thing to me about the apartheid in South Africa. That was literally a massive company. It was a company really, a country exploiting its indigenous population, foreigners, English and Dutch, coming over predominantly, coming over to exploit a country, to enslave the nation, and they told me. That's the system, and Thatcher and everyone, and Barclays apparently, allegedly, whatever, we're investing all the crew grounds, all that sort of stuff. That was the system. There's nothing I could do.
Agree. I hear you.
Until I saw Nelson Mandela in the flesh, having done loads of anti-apartheid stuff at Wembley Stadium, I don't believe. I think that Charles will be the last king of England. Charles will be the last king, the last royal in this country. Organised religion. People are seeing through that on a day-to-day basis. The next thing you're going to tell me is you're a dedicated something or other, and I'm going to go, look, he's a financial advisor, he supports Arsenal. Is that not enough? If there was a God out there, if he says his religion, I'll have to choke him right now. No, it's just, I see, I think I've fallen through the net because I just don't agree that the system, because the system didn't exist before this. See, in relative time to how long humanity's been there, this, and particularly in the country, these countries like where they have elites, particularly in England, America, whatever, it's rigged. There are a certain amount of people, 1%. I don't think that people, when they see, that's the problem with the internet, is that more people have more access to information, whereas before the elites used to control education, Latin, the churches, blah, 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 and people were like, oh yeah, the English Civil War. John Renbourn, the pamphleteers, started putting out information that normal people could read and changed. I bet they didn't think they could get rid of the king. Not that I'm suggesting we do that, but you see what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't believe, I have much more positivity and ambition for humanity than to think that we just sit back and all die because of rising water, pollution, etc., because someone thought it was a good idea to make money out of it. But back to you.
No, I hear. It's an interesting debate because I just think for me.
You think this is a debate?
Well, no, for me, it's like, we're sitting here in Wiltshire, we're sitting in Chippenham, we are trying to do our bit, all right? And I don't agree with the system, but I think we can fight the system.
I don't fight.
We can fight
change it,
and we can change. My
father was in the military, right? My grandfather before him. I don't agree with violence.
Yeah.
I don't agree with arms. I don't agree with that sort of control for anyone. But I don't agree. And this is interesting. You went to John Bentley, which was a very good school, actually. To be fair.
Yeah. To play basketball, football.
Yeah. But Alan Aggett, was Alan Aggett a teacher when you were there?
No, Jennings.
Okay.
Ring a bell to you or not?
No, but just what I'm just saying that you can talk about. Actually that was a good community school. And it's
Still is.
Yeah, it is. I don't remember what it's called now. It's at Summit Green. We work with them. It's lovely. But here's the point. I guess for me is the idea that if there is at a base level everyone understanding, and push will come to shove. Why do you think there's revolutions? Why do you think there's uprisings? Why do you think, look at any of those systems that have previously happened? I don't agree. See, the next revolution won't be people on the streets, not just because Priti Patel tried to ban them, ban any sort of protest. It's because people cop themselves on, because you've already hit upon it. When people decide not to take part, imagine this, you saw what happened in the pandemic. Not only did the environment improve and people's mental health actually went one way, then when people realized a lot of the reason why they were feeling so despondent about the world is because they realized that, oh wait a minute, now I'm completely redundant like most people are if they don't have a job. Whatever I thought was not us, we're key workers, we were working right through it, and that was hard. that, you know, and particularly for Mel and Andy Byrne, just want to put that out there, they had the hardest route when it was at its most dangerous, the perception of what this pandemic was. When people were at home realizing that their services weren't needed, right? So then, oh my God, why have I been working on this thing for the very things you were saying? The 2 weeks holiday, this, that, and the other, car that the Joneses keep telling me I should buy. Why am I doing that? And then actually doesn't make any sense. I think you'll find that more and more people are going to go, wait a minute, I wasn't working at all, and yet I was having a better quality of life once I got over the initial thing. I don't think people will ever be that dumb again to just adhere to the system.
I do
and I think they'll hold back. They won't go. Won't go to work.
I like that.
They won't go to work.
Well, they may not do that. They may also decide,
Yeah.
actually, there's a different way to live my life.
Yeah.
And that actually, is money
Yeah.
or a salary
Yeah.
the most important thing? They got used to the idea
Yeah.
of the new normal, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They were getting 80% of their pay through furlough. Whether you agree with furlough or not, it made people think of maybe a different way of living their life, and maybe as a result of that, they may set up their own business.
Yes, there you go.
They may also decide to sell and buy things on, on the internet, on eBay or whatever. There are people who are buying and selling stuff and making a little bit of profit on Facebook Marketplace locally.
Yeah.
They're doing that in the pandemic when they had the time to do it.
Yeah.
So that suddenly made lighting a spark and saying, well, actually, I could do my own thing in the background. I might still do my job.
Yeah.
But is money evil? No, I don't believe money's evil.
No.
If it's in the wrong hands,
Well, it's nothing. It doesn't exist.
but what do you need to? What do you need? We don't need thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds.
Don't need anyone
We
at all.
need
Shelter,
to.
water,
We need.
air.
I hear that, but
Yeah.
ultimately, in the democratic society we're in, whether you agree if it's
not.
democratic
It's
or not.
You see, you already knew that I knew that it was.
Yeah,
of
I hear
course.
that.
Yeah,
So from my point of view, what I'm trying to do is say, right, I don't know all the answers.
Yeah.
I'm 55 this year. I've 27 years
When
in
you're
financial
57,
services.
you'll know all the answers like me. I don't know any of the
I won't,
answers
I
either.
won't.
I don't know any of the answers.
I'll have a headache.
I just see what the questions are and I see that they're unanswered. But it's illogical for me how people are trying to square it off.
So
it's like, really?
But
Pollute it more?
my point is, if I can just make a small difference
And I love
to
that.
a few people,
I agree.
and those people decide to surround themselves with the right type of people,
100%.
then obviously we might make a difference to a few families.
I think you are.
a few
And I think if
people,
everyone does it,
and
you're
that-
right.
And if we do that, and we do that, and we do that,
Yeah.
if we go back to climate change, which I don't want to go back to because it's another debate,
Yeah.
we need China to do something more than what they do.
Yeah,
But
you
we
want to say,
have
okay,
to do something
there you
ourselves,
go.
don't we?
So you got it both ways, right? So here's the thing. China is saying, wait a minute, we've been asleep for centuries. You even fought a war against us to make us take heroin. Remember England? Remember your empire?
I knew I should have said that.
Yeah, your empire, England. You went and raped and robbed yourselves around the world, and now you're telling everyone, oh, I don't know if rape and robbery is a good idea. Nah, ain't gonna wash. You're dead right. You're dead right. This country is so advanced. It should be hot. It should be treading water, but not on. You shouldn't be standing on the shoulders of the poor. Everyone equally should be going right. We can't have excessive wealth because it's a bizarre description of what it really is, because it creates excessive need.
Or opportunity.
Doesn't it can do, but when you've been in the prisons, when you worked in the estates in Salford, in Brixton, and whatever, you go, wow, there's a lot more of these people than there is in the royal family.
Yeah.
And the royal family have masses of land and palaces and all that sort of stuff, and they couldn't possibly live in them all, and they possibly shouldn't be living in them all. But that's a debate for the French perhaps to have. Oh no, for the English to have eventually. Right? It's kind of ridiculous. It's an absurd argument. All those things are absurd, but not because it's not your going, Ed. I've decided this is how society should be, and I'm looking and going, mate, that is not actually, that sounds mental. I'm agreeing with you that you have come to those conclusions within the realms of the system that we have, and therefore, in the meantime, before everyone really cops on and they don't have financial advisors because you don't have finance in that way, and then you'd be playing football or being the coach or something, yeah? They need your advice. So in that interim, I want to hear as much of that, and I also want to set up a thing where people can actually go, what is that guy talking about? Would you be able to set up, not a surgery, but a time when we can put it out there that they can come in, because you're lovely.
Yeah,
and I definitely want to meet your wife. I mean this. I would love to do that. Maybe you should come to the art auction on the 25th. So, and I'll pay for your tickets, because I would
She's
really.
a bit more introverted.
Well, I'm not where she can sit at the table. I just because I think that's you're 100% right. That when we're working up and down the country, and when I was at the Home Office, I said this, ladies and gentlemen, Home Office. No, I didn't. I said this. Listen.
People don't know who that is.
Exactly.
Tommy Cooper. Did you know who that was? No.
They don't care. They don't care. But I said, look, basically what needs to happen is, because we're talking about this, and the white paper and all the stuff was out there now, parallel lives. But what is it we need to do when they've got such diverse communities? Well, there isn't really diverse communities. People might support Arsenal, people might support Tottenham, but they both love the idea of the game, right? Same with societies. You're all living together in Chippenham and Carn and what have you. What's the community, the common unity? What is it that unifies us commonly? Well, I've done loads of consultation around the country. I'm happy to report that the same things, don't matter. We've lived in various places and the same thing. Human beings are the same everywhere. Religion is just a different way of explaining stuff that now science and everything else has explained, but not completely. So the God in my head that exists is the concept beyond human imagination or understanding. So let's leave that out there and let's live the best life we can. And if afterwards, regarding any religion, if there was some reckoning, I would put up my last, I don't know, when working in prisons a bit before that, I'd say maybe 30 odd years and some volunteering, 35 years of good works up against most people's work just in a factory thing. No disrespect to them, because let's face it, I use the stuff they make in that factory potentially. It's not that, it's about, and you said it, who influenced you at what time. I was really lucky to have mentors or influencers to me that allowed me beyond my financial economic background to go, oh right, okay. Talk about it all the time. Cooked food after school was one. What was the other thing? That old people hadn't had fights. Could not believe at one stage that people did not all have fights. So I come from a big Irish family. We went from RAF camp to RAF camp, and I can recount each camp by the different fights that we had in different things. And I did not know that everyone else didn't do that. So you will get, and you know that in the military, they would give you 75%. That's why a woman says it's full of army kids, bless them. Abandoned kids. Anyway, they 75%. My mother, so we could have all been sent to boarding school. My mother used to say, I don't get it. And that's not Tommy Cooper, that's actually my mother. Kind of, why do people have kids and then send them away? She had 10 of them. Right, so that's a fair point. However, it didn't mean, because my father wouldn't accept free school meals or free school uniforms. So we were fundamentally made poorer by the idea of his pride that he couldn't have any, that people couldn't say he was some sort of Irish scavenger. Fair play to him, he earned that. We didn't, made up for it since. However, so in each place, if everyone did what you did, when I said at the Home Office, is you have to find people in their community that have local knowledge, local passion and compassion, do an audit with them, see what they need. You'd be brilliant, by the way, because they say this. A lot of people don't know about finance. So if they're setting up a little organisation, no matter what it is, food bank type thing, a place where people meet to knit, because humans are gregarious animals, it would be fantastic. They need to happen. That needs to happen. You need to do that audit. You can't have, like we have here, politicians that don't have any love or compassion for because they do not grow up here.
I think the interesting thing is that you're challenging my my opinions, but that's a great thing.
Are you glad you came?
Absolutely, I am, because it's
my work is done.
But the thing is, it's important to understand your morals and understand the environment we're in, and then form your own opinion. Yeah. Have an opinion. And I mean, we sponsor a child in Africa through Compassion, which is a religious organisation, but it's £30 a month. This kid it changes his life. Yeah. So money can do good things too. So I'm kind of coming from a background that I feel from my morals and from my standpoint. We're doing our bit.
Definitely.
And our bit includes the food bank, includes a child in Kenya who's got a mum and dad who's just being educated.
In Kenya?
Yeah.
No, that's because
we're
we're working with another organisation that run a thing, and it's in It's in Kenya, isn't it?
And his name's Brian, which was my dad's name.
Wow.
And my wife's dad was brought up part of his life in Kenya. So we linked the two together.
Wow.
We did
We'll
that.
link you with someone else.
So it was a nice thing to be able to do.
I bet you've got it here. I'm an advertiser for this. No, that's not it. That's my shopping list. Maya. It's interesting. No. Have a little look at that.
Glasses, yeah.
You have your glasses. Basically,
Have a
you
look,
have.
yeah.
Go on, have a look. Just do it, because it's just a coincidence, isn't it? That's great that you're doing that, and I agree with these people. They do the same thing, so we work with them because they're doing something. They're working with that they've helped build school/orphanage, and try to they feed the 500, is it? £5 a month to feed one child. Unbelievable, isn't it, when you think of that? But I agree with you 100%. You're doing, if everyone then took responsibility for another child, I'd say that you'd be shocked.
Could do it in the UK.
No, do it both places.
Yeah.
Africa's only poor because of the capitalist West.
Yeah.
Trust me. If they're not dumb, these people would just grow their own stuff. They wouldn't be growing peanuts and chocolate and coffee for the Western markets.
But it's opening up more because I think there's more opportunity to even make money out of harnessing light and sun power and stuff like that. And there's projects involving high-tech stuff which allow that to happen, which is another area. Blockchain technology is another area, but which is confused because it's linked to cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, but it's also to massive use of energy.
But
if you can do the sustainable system, there you go. That's what I'm talking about, by the way.
Yeah.
A sustainable system feeds everyone, waters everyone. I think the levelers had the idea back in the day where you just go, well, you can't have that excess, but these people can't. Because here's the vested, enlightened self-interest. Who do you think people rob? I've worked with people that mug people. They always say it to me. We always rob people that look like, and this is the quote from the gang I work with in London, we always rob people that look like they've got something and won't do anything. And another guy said, what does that mean? He said, well, they have to have something worth stealing, and you have to think, well, they're not going to hassle me, they're not going to fight me back, right? So if you perceive yourself to be doing well in society, the threat, and this is where we did Bash Street, the threat you will always have from the injustice of a capitalist system is that people will target you and your children, because why would they target the people they live with? They're all poor. And you say, oh, they're drug addicts. Well, there's a whole thing about drugs, alcohol, why it's acceptable. If you read 1984, there's a good explanation there. But in reality, but conversely, you can only do your bit. And if everyone did what you're doing, 100% we'd have a better society.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Well, no, we couldn't. For me, that's it. If I was, like I said, in Home Office, well, find these people.
I could sit at home and do nothing. And I don't.
You don't, exactly. You could just, every bit of your time could just be concentrated on how to make more money. So you're an anomaly. I hope you aren't, but the fact that you are and you're here, I think that you might be.
I can't do this Tommy Cooper impression, but
I think you might be. And nor can I, apparently.
And I think the thing is, everyone's got something inside them. I've got a pacemaker inside me.
Have you really?
But that's another story. But it makes you, when you're in hospital with health issues, it makes you maybe rethink the way you live your life.
Yeah.
And that is something I've been through. So I just want to do that little bit extra than sitting in the house and just helping people make money.
Perfect.
Or protect their money, or whatever you want to call it. But if we can just do a little bit, and surround ourselves with the right people and the right mentors.
Agreed.
And if I can be a mentor, and have a bit of fun as well, and try and have a smile and have a laugh, because it is a tough world we live in.
Absolutely.
And try and give some enlightenment, some hope. Hope's a big thing for me.
I agree.
If you've got hope, you've got to better your life one day at a time, one month at a time. It sounds, maybe it sounds too good to be true, but I honestly think if you wake up in the morning and you think negative things, you'll have a negative day.
Yeah.
But if you can find some positivity, and you can, it makes me feel good if I can help somebody else.
Brilliant.
So if I can help somebody else, that person can learn to help somebody else. And that's all we can.
Chain reaction.
I feel that's all we can do. The bigger picture of the system and so on, they keep printing more money, so that doesn't help, because by printing more money, they're devaluing the currency. And the currency has changed, obviously, in the 70s with the gold standard and all the changes that took place there. And I'm not suggesting we carry around a load of gold pieces, but it actually worked a better way,
Yeah.
and the barter system before that.
Yeah.
There's loads of history involved with
Yeah.
money and currency, and the British pound is the oldest currency in the world. I think it's over 325 years, but it's devalued by 99.9% of its value in its time.
Yeah.
So if we don't start teaching people about budgeting and money, we won't help them break out of their
I
system
agree.
or the system.
So let's do it on a local economic trading scheme. Can we set up something? What's your company called, by the way? And we'll put this out.
Boatman Financial, after my name.
Cool. So we'll put this on this. We'll get all the details of that because it's important, so people can contact you privately. But it'd be lovely to advertise you coming here to either talk, do a presentation, people can ask you questions, or a one-to-one or whatever, if you've got the time and when you've got the time.
I'll make the time.
There you go. So let's make that the next part of this, because we'll film that again, part 2, because it's important, and I really do respect what you represent and how you're trying to represent it, and your values and what you're doing with it. And I really humbly say to you, if everyone did what you're doing, our society would be fine. So it's an absolute pleasure to meet you, Arsenal fan. You. No, you're a great man. Thank you, and I can't wait to meet your wife. That's a cut for now. When you see this man again, hopefully he'll be in the shop or giving mentoring or giving advice to, particularly in April, when all the
rise.
let's never talk about the rise in prices. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's a cut. Maya, Georgia Coleman, thank you very much. Love and peace, people.
Okay.
Nice.
Spinning at 1,000 miles.